Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the NaNoWriMo, everything you need to know about National Novel Writing Month, presented by Chris Mandeville. She is a young adult science fiction, fiction, and nonfiction writer. She writes full-time, and she was a multi-year winner of NaNoWriMo and a proud nano pirate, which hopefully she will explain that term nano pirate to us. Her published works include the time travel trilogy In Real Time, which includes Quake, Shake, and Break, Seeds, a post-apocalyptic adventure, and 52 Ways to Get Unstuck, exercises to break through writer's block. And she's been teaching workshops for 15 years, and she lives in Monument, as she told us earlier, with her family and her service dog, Finn. So thank you, Chris, for doing this workshop.
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to talk to you today about NaNoWriMo. I'm going to go over the official rules, all the resources that are available to you if you decide to participate, some alternatives if you decide not to participate in the official program for any reason, and then I'm going to share some strategies for success. I have participated in NaNoWriMo for, gosh, I think my original profile on NaNoWriMo.org dates back to 2008. So I'm a big fan of Nano and excited to talk to you guys all about what I've done with Nano, what I know is available out there as resources for you all, and what's worked for me. So first, what is NaNoWriMo? NaNoWriMo stands for National Novel Writing Month. NaNoWriMo for short, even shorter, we just call it Nano. It is a frenzy of focused writing in the month of November. The goal is to produce 50,000 new words on a novel in those 30 days of November. Hundreds of thousands of crazy and a few sane people actually attempt this every year from around the globe, and quite a few people win or complete the program. The official program at NaNoWriMo.org is run by a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and it is completely free for all of us to participate in. Let's take a brief stroll down memory lane to see how we arrived at this 22nd year of literary awesomeness. This is Chris Beatty. He is the, quote, accidental founder of NaNoWriMo. He's also the author of No Plot, No Problem, modeled there by my trusty service dog, Finn. When Beatty was 26 years old, he said in an interview back in 1999 with American Writers and Artists Institute, he said, quote, that quarter life crisis moment where you're just feeling like, I thought I would have done more, is what prompted him to accidentally create NaNoWriMo. He said he wanted to come up with a big challenge, and that ended up being writing a novel. So even though 1999 was back in the dark ages as far as internet and computers and that sort of thing, he still emailed a bunch of his friends and said, hey, I'm going to do this. Anybody want to do it with me? 21 people agreed to give it a shot, and they agreed to all meet in person at a coffee shop to write every week for the month of November. And he said it was pretty hilarious because computers then were not quite so small and portable as they are now, and batteries didn't last very long. So he said that they had to string extension cords across his coffee shop and tape them down with gaffer's tape, and it was quite the ordeal, but they did it. He did say that at about week 2 or so, some of them started to struggle, but no one wanted to be that guy who quit. So they all stuck with it, and that is how Chris came to understand how important community and accountability are to completing NaNoWriMo. We're going to come back to those themes a lot during today's presentation. Of those original 21, 5 of them made it to 50,000 words, and guess how those words were verified? Manually by Chris Beatty. Well, isn't he glad he's not doing that anymore? But he said that the experience was amazing. Such a meaningful, great, amazing experiences. But the books themselves, they weren't so amazing. But that's okay, because you can always revise later. So that's how NaNoWriMo was accidentally born. We're going to take a quick pass through the history of from how we got from there to where we are now. The very next year in 2000, saw one of the things that maybe the only thing I dislike about NaNoWriMo, and that is the move to November. It actually wasn't November the first year, it was a summer month. And then they thought, we'll move to November to take advantage of the crappy weather. Why November? I'm still mad about this because November is so busy for me. I don't know if it is for you, if you're in the United States, like most of you are. I celebrate American Thanksgiving. Usually there's lots of football, all kinds of stuff. In my family, I think we have 6 birthdays in November. It's just crazy. So, but that's water under the bridge. I can't fix that now. So NaNo is in November. In that second year, 140 people signed up. And Chris is quoted as telling his mom, I have no idea where these people came from. I don't know most of them. They must have found me on the internet. 21 folks finished, still manually verified by Beatty. The real website was born with some of the rules that are in play now today. It just kept snowballing. The next year, 150, he was expecting 150 people, but he got 5,000. He blames bloggers on that year. And it didn't hurt that some national magazines and newspapers had picked up on this idea. There's something about this idea that really resonates with people. It continued to grow to over 100,000 people in over 40 countries. As technology expanded, Chris started adding things like computer verification of the word count. He started branching out and adding write-ins and community partnerships with libraries and bookstores. Twitter started doing word sprints. They updated the website. 2004 started the Young Writers Program. 2006 is when they became a nonprofit. 2011 started Camp NaNoWriMo in the summer. And for Camp Nano, you can do any project you want. So those of us who write nonfiction or screenplays or short stories or essays, it's a lot more flexible version of Nano in the summer. I was a bit sad when Beatty stepped down as executive director in 2012. However, he stayed on the board as a member emeritus. And Grant Faulkner, who I don't know, is now, became the ED then, and is still the executive director, doing a great job. And then I want to mention that in 2013, Nano started something that I think is critical, and that is January and February were deemed now what months. I always want to say what now. Now what months dedicated to editing and revision, which is really fantastic. I was so excited when they added those. So here we are, last year, 2019. I'll give you the stats. The Nano community had grown to 455,080 participants on 6 continents, including 100,000 students and educators in the Young Writers Program, plus Camp Nano had over 70,000 campers. The nonprofit is going strong, has fantastic volunteers and staff, great educational programming, and lots of opportunities for us. So 2020, here we are. Things are going to be a bit different with the global pandemic. But I'm not sure that's going to be all bad for NaNoWriMo. I think that there are possibly more people out there with the time and the inclination to participate. So maybe this will be a banner year for Nano. Let's look at the what you can look forward to if you decide to sign up. The official rules of NaNoWriMo. The official start time is 12 a.m. November 1st. So that is, I think, the night of Halloween, yeah? The goal is to reach 50,000 new words, all brand new, by 11:59 p.m. on November 30th, your local time, wherever that happens to be. It needs to be all brand new words. You can't use anything for the official program that you have previously written. You must start at the beginning of your program, of your project. That doesn't mean on page 1. It just means you're not supposed to jump into a novel that you've got half written. Extensive planning and notes are permitted. You can do as much as you want in advance of November 1st. If you're super ambitious, you can have a goal of more than 50,000 words. That's fine. But you can't start on October 15th and go for 30 days, or start on November 5th and go to December 5th. That's not allowed in the official program. It has to be November 1st through 30th. So winning boils down to 30 days, which is 720 hours, 43,200 minutes, or 2,592,000 seconds. That sounds like a lot of time, but when you try to write 50,000 new words in those 30 days, it can be pretty challenging. If you plan to write an equal amount every single day, that means you would have to write 1667 words a day for 30 days, or if you take a day off each week, then it'd be 2,000 words a day. But you can figure out what your schedule will allow, and we're definitely going to go over that in detail, how to set your schedule up. But just to give you an example, for me, I typically don't write on the weekends. So that gives me 5 days a week to write. And then I subtract out Thanksgiving, because I never write on Thanksgiving. So when I looked at my calendar, I only had 20 days in November that I was planning to write, which meant I had to do 2,500 words a day, brand new words. Now I write pretty fast, but even for me, that's a pretty big challenge. I have to know exactly where the story's going in order to be able to crank out that many words in a short time. So bottom line is, it's a big commitment for anyone, including professional full-time writers. So to get your official win, you have to verify your word count on the website by the deadline. And if you submit 50,000 words, you win. Anybody who submits 50,000 words will win. And I mentioned it's now verified by software on the website. That means you have to upload your manuscript. And a lot of people feel squidgy about that. There is the option to scramble those words. And NaNoWriMo promises they do not keep anything that you upload. I personally have never had a problem or even heard of a problem resulting from uploading a manuscript, just to put you at ease. It would be really, really, really easy to cheat and to upload anything of 50,000 word length and win. There aren't any precautions to prevent cheating. You're on your honor. But the organizers don't really think that's a problem. They don't put safeguards in because they feel like while there are official prizes that we will talk a little bit about, the biggest prize is the satisfaction and pride, the knowledge that you completed a novel, which you don't get if you cheat. So they're not too worried about that. I will mention that no official prizes are given for how good your novel is. NaNoWriMo is not about writing good words. It's just about writing a lot of words. So think quantity, not quality. So we come to our first break where I'm going to check the chat for questions. If you have a question, go ahead and type it in the chat for me. And we're looking specifically at questions related to the official NaNoWriMo rules. The next thing we're going to do is dig into some alternatives. All right, I don't see any questions yet. Feel free to type them at any time if you have a question. All right, so let's move on to my question for you, which is why? Why on earth would you want to do this crazy thing called NaNoWriMo that disrupts your entire life and puts this enormous pressure on you to write 50,000 new words in 30 days? Think about why you personally might want to do that. Feel free to type it in the chat if you want to share. Definitely keep it in the back of your mind. I can tell you my answer. My reason for doing this the very first time is sometimes I have a hard time getting my butt in the chair and writing if I don't have a deadline. So if I'm not under deadline with the publisher, I sometimes don't write. So having a deadline is a great way to ensure for me that I get my butt in the chair. It's about that pressure for me. So the official answer from NaNoWriMo folks as to why to do Nano, why they created this program, is to get people started writing. They want you to start, and this provides that impetus for some people. They mentioned deadline, which was important for me. They want to help you get your story rolling, and they want to help you create good habits of writing regularly and getting words down on paper. I have done an official survey of writers that I meet, and I've talked to lots of folks and read lots of blog posts about why people do Nano, and here are some of the answers that are common out there. Some of them mirror mine and the official NaNoWriMo. Some people say they want to use it to try on an idea, a new idea that they want to see if it has legs, to build confidence, to find a writing community. The pep talks, that's a little teaser. We're going to talk more about that later. And some people really like to be able to say, I did this, like, you know, I climbed that mountain, which, yeah, that's a legitimate reason for doing it. It works. If it works for you, that's a great reason. Let's talk a little bit more about my personal reasons. Here's my top 4. I already mentioned that deadline is big for me. It helps keep me focused. Accountability turned out to be really important to me as a writer also. Having a date to write. Somebody knows that I'm supposed to be writing, that I have an appointment to write, and they are going to check on me and see if I did it. And during November, I have lots and lots of friends who are doing NaNoWriMo. So there is increased accountability for me there. So I really like that. If you don't have writing partners, you can find them during NaNoWriMo and be accountable to someone besides yourself, because sometimes you give yourself too many breaks. My biggest reason for recommending Nano to folks is learning how to vomit right. Okay, I know that sounds a little gross, but really it's all about just letting it go and not caring what comes out. You can clean it up later. That's why I call it vomit writing. It's learning to shut up the inner critic that inhibits your writing. It's pushing past that little voice that says what you're writing is crap, it's not any good, you should just give up. Or, you know, you have to make these words really, really good. Think very carefully about which word you're going to put down. If you're going to do NaNoWriMo, or you're going to write fast and hard on any tight deadline, you have to learn how to shut up that voice or ignore it. So this is the biggest skill. Sort of hand in hand with that is learning how to put words on the page, even when your muse is not speaking to you, when you don't feel inspired. Sitting down at the computer or at your notepad and writing anyway is a huge skill that's important on deadline, and I would say any day as a professional writer if that's something you want to do. And finally, quantity begets quality. You've probably heard of Malcolm Gladwell's idea that any skill takes 10,000 hours of practice to master. Nano gives you a pretty good head start on that. But there's a story that I read on therightpractice.com, 12 Thoughts About NaNoWriMo by Joe Bunting. He shared this story, and I think it really illustrates that the more you write, the better you will write. He said that a pottery teacher divided his class in half and said to the first half, you're going to be graded on the quality of your work. You just have to produce one perfect pot in the semester, and then you will get an A. The other half of the class, he said, you're graded on quantity. Produce as many pots as you can, and it doesn't matter how good they are. They can be just utter crap, but if you produce 50 pounds by the end of the semester, you get an A. So you want to guess who had the best work? Well, it was not the folks who were told they just had to produce one perfect pot. Turns out that's just too much pressure. The standards are too high. But the folks that produced bad pot after bad pot after bad pot, their pots got better over time. And so the better pots at the end of the semester were those who produced a lot of them. So We as writers, we want to produce good quality work. I'm not saying that you don't. I personally try really hard to make sure that my published work is of the highest quality. But Nano is not about that. Nano is about quantity. It's about getting words on the page, even if they're crap. But you might be wondering, what about becoming a rich and famous writer? What about writing the all-American novel and having that be a breakout success? After all, these folks did it. And there you can see my trusty service dog, Finn, modeling the book Wool by Hugh Howey. You also have The Night Circus, Water for Elephants, Fangirl, and Cinder. All of these began as NaNoWriMo projects. And while it's true that these are nano books and they're bragged about in nano circles as, oh, these are nano books, the truth is these authors didn't do it in the 30 days of Nano. What you have at the end of the 30 days is a rough draft. You have a manuscript. It's not ready to go out into the world, which is why I think it's so important that Nano added the now what months, or the what now months. I always say it backwards. In January and February, it's all about editing and revision. But I'll tell you, completing NaNoWriMo, even though it will not make you a rich and famous author, it will make you one thing, and that is a novelist. If you write a novel, even if no one ever sees it, you can legitimately call yourself a novelist. So how's that for a great nano goal? To be able to say, I'm a novelist. It's like I climbed Mount Everest. I think it's a great reason. So how about some reasons why you would not want to do NaNoWriMo? And I'm not talking about, oh my gosh, it's so much work or whatever. I'm talking about reasons that it would be detrimental to you as a writer, detrimental to your psyche. If just the act of trying would provide you so much stress and anxiety that is going to inhibit your creativity and make you maybe not want to write, don't try Nano. If you try and you lose, if that would crush your spirit, don't do it. It's not worth it. If Nano, the process of Nano during November with all these other folks would provide too many distractions, and we're going to talk a lot about those distractions, if that would just be too much for you to resist and do the work, don't do Nano. Another thing too is be aware. If you write 50,000 words as fast and hard as you can without worrying about the quality, you're going to end up with a really messy manuscript in 99% of cases. If that is going to be too difficult for you as a challenge, if it's going to be too daunting, then perhaps you'd be better off doing something where you write a chapter and revise it rather than vomiting out the whole novel. And finally, if you're already writing on a regular basis, if you're in a really good rhythm, then I would say don't mess that up. Don't do it, because you already have something that's working. So you're taking a risk by mixing it up. If you want to take a risk, sure. Just remember, you can always go back to the way you were before. So think again. I ask you personally, each of you, to think about why you want to do NaNoWriMo. Or if you're not sure you want to do official Nano, that's okay. We're talking about a big commitment to writing. Why do you want to make that commitment? What are you wanting to get out of it? What are your hopes, your dreams, your fears, your goals? And if your reasons are different than before, I'd love to know. I recommend that if you decide to go forward with this, you really think hard about why you're doing it. And you go so far as to write it down, or even make like a dream board collage with all the reasons or the primary reason why you're doing this, or at least put it on a sticky note. Because if you do Nano, you're going to run into a dark day at some point. Everybody does. Everybody gets discouraged. Everybody thinks about giving up. And a lot of people actually do give up. But if you have this why, your reason why, if you do this homework, then on a dark day, you can reflect back on that and maybe become remotivated and reinvigorated if you remind yourself why you're doing this to begin with. It may be the difference in whether you keep going or not. So If you're not sure, now that you've seen how daunting this task is, if you're not sure you want to do official nano, there are some alternatives, some official, some not. It's semi-official to be a nano rebel. That is what folks in the nano community call doing it your own way, like using the month of November to sign up for the official program and do something that's not really according to the rules, like I'm halfway through a novel and I'm going to use this time to finish my novel, or I'm going to use this to revise a novel, or I'm going to write a screenplay. For some reason, and I don't know why, I've always called that being a nano pirate. And the first time I gave a talk about NaNoWriMo, I Googled it to get the official definition of nano pirate and couldn't find it. Apparently, I made it up, or I heard it somewhere and it just stuck. And perhaps I just like the idea better of being a pirate than being a rebel. I don't know. Feel free to co-opt that term and use nano pirate as much as you want. You don't even have to credit me. There's the official not NaNoWriMo, which is Camp Nano, that has the relaxed rules that we talked about, and you have a lot more leeway to do whatever it is you want to do and still have all that official support. And you can sign up for that on the main website for NaNoWriMo. That I'll show you that in a bit. Or you could DIY it, make your own NaNoWriMo. Look at NaNoWriMo the way that it's officially set up, and then borrow what works for you and set up your own thing. Do like Chris Beatty did and get 21 of your best friends to meet you at coffee shops, or maybe online during this year. If you're still not sure you want to do nano at all in any capacity, please don't go away now, because as we go forward, a lot of the resources that I'm going to share with you and a lot of the techniques and strategies, they will serve you well when you're writing anything. It doesn't have to be a nano project. So we're going to pause here for some Q&A. If you have any questions about what we've covered thus far, please put them in the chat. And if there's no questions, I know it's because you're all excited to get to the next part, which is nano resources. We're going to talk about all the official and unofficial resources that I have found out there in the interwebs to help you get through any writing project. All right, we're moving on then. So this is more or less what it looks like if you go to nanowrimo.org and you have not joined, you're not signed in. You can see in the upper corner where it says sign up, sign in. I got this screenshot with me not being signed in so that you could see what it looks like. There's a lot of stuff here available to you without signing up, and that's the URL at the top for you. You can read all about what NaNoWriMo is and see who their staff members are and their board of directors. You can download a free prep class, the 6-week prep class, completely free. You don't have to join for that. You can watch the pep talks. Again, a little tease about the pep talks. Promise we're going to get to that soon. You can read years and years of blog posts on the official NaNoWriMo blog, with the caveat that you have to have a Tumblr account. I believe, to access that. The platform they use for that is Tumblr, and I don't think I was able to get in without having signing into my own account. You can also, of course, shop and donate. You can see at the top. They are a nonprofit. Your donations are potentially tax deductible. You can also navigate to the Young Writers Program. You can see that down at the bottom corner there. If you're 18 or under, that may be a good option for you, so that your community you're connecting with is your demographic. I also want to share a little, I'll call it insider information. There's like an FAQ. There's a whole bunch of information that is kind of cool to go through, especially if you're considering doing the official NaNoWriMo, but you can't navigate to it from this page. You have to know the URL to get there. So here it is. It's nanowrimo.uservoice.com, and that should get you to that info or FAQ section of the website that exists, but you just can't navigate to it from the homepage if you're not signed in. It's a little insider info for you there. Now we're going to talk about the pep talks. I teased that several times because It's really awesome. It's an amazing thing that you don't have to be signed into NaNoWriMo to access. The Nano folks put together pep talks to motivate and inspire writers. And this is advice from real working writers who've put in the time, who write the words, who, you know, are in the trenches with us. But these guys also happen to be quite famous and successful writers, and you may have heard of some of them. Neil Gaiman, Patrick Rothfuss, Philip Pullman. Sarah Gruen has done pep talks. She's the one who wrote Water for Elephants that started as a nano project. Meg Cabot, Lemony Snicket, Brandon Sanderson, Diana Gabaldon. The list just goes on. Their archive on the pep talks goes all the way back to 2007. I know that's not as far back as 99, but in 2007, there's an entry from the late, great Sue Grafton, Mr. Writer, who I adore. And all the way to 2019, we have an entry from Anne Lamott, who wrote the famous, two authors, Bird by Bird, a great inspiration craft of writing book. These talks are free and available to everyone, to anyone year-round. And you get there by clicking at the bottom of that homepage. Whether you're signed in or not, there's a little pep talk button. I recommend you take a look at it for fun, for inspiration, for motivation, whenever you need it. If you are signed up for NaNoWriMo officially, then you will get notifications of new pep talks as they become available. So maybe you're in a slump in the middle of November, and then your favorite author post something motivational. Wouldn't that be cool to know right away? You get all kinds of really cool things if you sign up. And signing up for NaNoWriMo is completely free and is pretty painless. So let's take a look at what that looks like so you can believe me that it's not a super big deal to sign up. You put in your email, you pick a password, you choose a username. That's it. No credit card, nothing. Apparently you can continue with Facebook, which my computer programming son has told me is actually a very safe way. Okay, I'm not liable if it turns out not to be true, but apparently signing up for something with Facebook is a pretty safe way in terms of privacy for to sign up for something. So one caveat I will give you is that your username is your handle, like a CB handle, if you're old enough to know what that is. It's the name by which other people will find you in NaNoWriMo. So choose that name carefully. Don't choose something you're going to be embarrassed by, especially when you eventually do write the great American novel, become rich and famous, and you're talking to people about your nano experiences. You don't want to have a goofy or embarrassing username. My username is KitCade. You'll see how that's spelled on the next page, and I hope you'll buddy me up. All right, so this is what it looks like if you sign up for the official NaNoWriMo. This is me signed in. Welcome to NaNoWriMo 2020, KitCade. You'll see now there's some new headings at the top there. My NaNoWriMo, might be a little blurry for you to read, community and writers resources. Let's go through those quickly and see what they have for you. Under My NaNoWriMo, your profile, you can choose, if you want, to put a little bio in there. You can list your 5 favorite books, your 5 favorite authors. You can put your photo. It's by choice. You don't have to do it. The next tab is projects. You can put information in there about what you're writing for Nano. And official website glitches aside, you would be able to see year to year, if you've done this, what project you worked on and how many words you have committed to that project. Now, the latest NaNoWriMo.org update, apparently some information was lost from previous years. Like, it still shows that I signed up in 2008 was my first year on the website, but it doesn't show any of my projects or any of my word counts or any times that how many times I completed it. It doesn't say I'm a 4-time Nano winner or whatever. That's okay. I don't always put my stuff in anyway, but other folks I've talked to have been a little disappointed that it's not showing all their history. But we do have a great new website, so, on the plus side. So projects, you can choose to put that information in there if you want. Buddies, This tab is where you can search for other people who are doing Nano. So there's a little search window and you just type in Kit Cade and it'll say, send Kit Cade an invitation to be your buddy. It also lists your buddies there, and it shows you if you have any pending buddies, like if you have been invited to buddy up or if you have invited somebody else, it'll show you those. Next tab is community. Like I said, we're going to go through these pretty quickly. We're going to go through these in reverse order and do forums last. Find a region is the first thing you should do, and that's where you find your home region. And for me, my home region is Colorado Springs, you can see there. I don't know if there's a monument one. I'm part of the greater Colorado Springs area. So you want to go and sign up for that. My groups will show you that group as well as any other official Nano groups that you have joined. Next tab up is home region. Again, this shows that I'm in Colorado Springs. And this is important because this is where you find out what's going on in your own region. And it's not as important this year because Nano has announced that the write-ins, which are normally places where you get together in person, not always, I mean, they've always had online stuff, at least for quite some time, but normally there are going to be in-person write-ins in your region. This year, because of pandemic, Nano has announced that there will not be any in-person write-ins, unfortunately. But I still want you to go to home region and sign in because there are, for every region, there are what they call MLs, municipal liaisons. And these are people, volunteers who are very knowledgeable about NaNoWriMo, who are sort of the leaders of your region, and they're great sources of information for you. And who knows, you could connect with people virtually this year that then later on you meet up in person and do write-ins, or you become critique partners, or any number of things. So please go ahead and sign up for your local region, even though the write-ins will not be in person. And remember, we can do virtual write-ins, and I plan to embrace that this year because you still get a bit of socialization, you still get that accountability, you still get that competitive spike if you are a competitive sort that, oh my gosh, all these other people are writing for half an hour and I need to be able to post a word count too, and I'm going to see if I get the biggest word count. Whatever works for you. Look for the virtual write-ins. And remember, Beatty discovered way back at the very first accidental NaNoWriMo that accountability and community is really, really important. And this is one way that you can get that online. Now we come to the biggie, forums. If you're an old hat, you may know forums by the name listserv. It's a bulletin board of topics where you can exchange information with other people. There are a ton of official forums on NaNoWriMo.org, and you cannot get to them unless you're signed in. There's the official stuff, which goes over the rules, and that's where I found the information about we're not doing any in-person write-ins this year, so you can get updates like that. Next is sponsor offers, which we're going to go into in a bit. Next is support and tech help if you have any difficulty. Like if I really cared that my previous Nano wins were not logged, I could post a question in there, or just go read what's already posted. Somebody's probably already asked my question and I can see the answer. Coffee House is a general gathering place for questions and boards that don't have a home elsewhere. Newbies, self-explanatory. If this is your first year, give that a shot. I'm assuming that questions will be answered by people who are not newbies. Finding your crew is how to connect with other people during Nano. That's where you might find people to buddy up with that have a similar interest, or groups to join that appeal to you. Writing groups assemble is different than finding your crew, even though it's also about finding your crew. It's about finding your crew outside of NaNoWriMo November. So maybe finding somebody to be a critique partner, or finding a group to join that meets outside of the Nano constructs. All right, the regional forums, that's in normal years, non-pandemic years, Let's say I decided to tag along on a business trip with my husband to Boston, and I'm writing in a hotel room and I'm writing my words for Nano, and I'm like, I really need to write in. I want to go to a coffee shop somewhere. So I would log into the regional forums and find the Boston forum and see what they had going on to be able to connect with them. So that's where I don't know how regional forums will become useful during this Nano, but I'm sure there will be something there. Reference Desk is a pretty awesome forum. There are research questions there, from space stations to horses to blood spatter to cell phones in the 90s. And yes, those are all real boards that I found there. When you can go in there and find a thread that answers questions that you have, or if you don't see one, you can ask a question, start a new thread. Also, when you want to take a break and you want to be part of this community, you can go in and answer questions that relate to your personal expertise. And it's a great way to give back to the community, and also can be a good brain break from writing. I will mention that once a question has been answered, they usually they add the word solved to the question so that you know that the answer is there for you. It's a terrific way to get crowdsourced information. So I highly recommend that. New this year for Nano is within these forums, not all of them, but many of them will have groups within the forums that they're calling private affinity groups. Joining will give special access for folks to group together who are who want to be part of an LGBTQIA community, a teen community, a BIPOC community, chronic illness. There's a whole lot of examples. So, so if you would like to be part of that smaller group within a forum, because you would perhaps feel more comfortable sharing your ideas, that is now available to you. And if all this isn't enough, there's more. There are forums right now that they say are muted, which are not showing up, but that will become active as information gets in there. Plus, you can always count on new stuff showing up during November. But I will give you a cautionary tale. It can be really, really easy to get sucked into those forums and not come out for hours, especially if you're an information junkie like I am. There used to be a forum called Procrastination Station. I don't see it now. Maybe they thought that was a bad idea. Maybe they took it away. But while the forums can provide really, really useful information and a nice break and a nice way to connect with other people, you know yourself. You know if you are likely to get sucked in by all this information. So if you know that is your tendency, do what you have to do to limit yourself. Set a timer, make some rule that you have to abide by. I've got to reach my word count today before I can go in the forums, whatever it is that you need to do to keep yourself on track. These are those distractions that I mentioned that you may not want to do the official Nano if you think you can't resist being distracted by these things. All right, our next tab on the homepage is Writers Resources. We've talked a little bit about Camp NaNoWriMo. They used to have their own website. They don't anymore. It is under the Nano umbrella here, whereas the Young Writers Program still does have their own website. These are all available to you on the homepage, links to the Young Writers website and Camp Nano. So Camp Nano has a tab there, lots of information under there. Nano Prep, I mentioned earlier that NaNoWriMo is providing an official prep class. I believe it's 6 weeks worth of prep lessons that you can do at your own pace. It's available for free download. You don't even have to sign up. You can click on it at the bottom of the homepage when you're not signed in, but you can also get to it here. And then pep talks. These are not different from what we showed you earlier. It's just another way to navigate to the pep talks. And then offers. Remember I mentioned sponsors and I mentioned prizes. Well, NaNoWriMo has lots of sponsors that give perks to participants. Like, you can get these perks just for signing up. In many cases, you don't have to even write a single word. You just sign up, and it's totally fine. It's not breaking the rules to take advantage of these perks that they offer. But some of the sponsors will also have a perk or a prize for winners, for people who have the verified word count. So just when you're browsing through the perks, just pay attention to that. My favorite perk is, I use Scrivener. It's like a word processing program, but it's so much more than that, and it's geared toward writers, fiction and nonfiction. And Scrivener has been an official sponsor of NaNoWriMo for lots of years, and every year during the month of November, they offer a discount. And I always encourage people who are writing seriously, who have not tried Scrivener, to take advantage of this discount. They also offer you a free trial, so you can see before you buy if you even like Scrivener at all. And even if you're not serious about writing yet, still check it out, because if you learn to write using Scrivener and you develop your habits using Scrivener, then you don't have to then switch over from your word processing program into this new way of thinking later. So highly recommend it. These are only just a few of the sponsors. There's so many. Another perk, if you sign up for the official NaNoWriMo, is you get email. This is a screenshot of an email that I got last week. This one talks about the Instagram inspiration scavenger hunt that they're doing, which sounds really cool. So if you sign up, you get these emails. They're maybe a bit frequent. I think I got 15 in the 7 days after I signed up, something like that. Oh no, maybe it wasn't quite that bad. 7 in the 2 weeks. So the opposite of what I said the first time. So less frequent than I scared you with a minute ago. But you know what? So what if they send you a lot of emails? You don't have to read them all. For me, I like it because when I see that in my email, it reminds me, you're doing NaNoWriMo. Should you be spending time doing email? Maybe you should get your butt back to the keyboard for writing. So I like keeping Nano top of mind, and these emails are nice with options and information, and also just a little poke that I should get busy. Oh, speaking of Instagram, social media, yes, official NaNoWriMo has all of the platforms. They have presence on all of the platforms. These links are available at the bottom of the homepage, whether or not you're signed in. And Michelle, if you want to, I'm sorry, Melissa, if you want to put any of those links in the chat, you can, but it's easy enough to get to them through the website just by clicking on the little Facebook icon. It'll take you to their Facebook presence. You do need to have your own account on these platforms in order to access them. That's just the way it works, but you don't need to be an official Nano participant. Again, with the caution, there's so much information. It's really, 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 really easy to go down a rabbit hole and have time taken away from your writing that you really can't afford to lose. So take whatever precautions you need to take. There are lots and lots of resources that are not connected to the official NaNoWriMo. We're just going to touch on a couple. On any of these social media platforms, you can type in NaNoWriMo, and in addition to the official presence, you will get lots and lots and lots of unofficial stuff. I mean, buckets, oodles of it, more than you can possibly digest. So you can just go browse if you're interested in what's there. Again, maybe setting a timer. Another way I like to go about it is I look at my personal writing organizations and groups that I participate in throughout the year. And I usually will go to their website or their Facebook and say, you know, look to see if they're doing any official NaNoWriMo stuff. Like Pikes Peak Writers is an organization that I've been involved with for, gosh, coming up on 20 years now. And I always check to see if they're doing anything with Nano. I recently also started a group within the Superstars writing community that we call the Tribe. We started a Nano group for this year to be supportive of other tribe members who are doing Nano. So maybe that's something you could consider doing. If your local group or your group that you are involved with isn't doing a nano, maybe start one. And then I just found this resource, WikiRIMO.org. It's a wiki. I think that's the end of that. It's not wiki thread, it's just a wiki. It's a wiki about NaNoWriMo. And you can get information there too. So, another resource for you. You may not have ever heard of Kobo Writing Life if you haven't lived outside the United States. Kobo is here in the United States, but it's headquartered in Canada, and it is an ebook publisher like Kindle, but it's much more popular outside the US than in. As a matter of fact, a lot of countries, when we here in the United States would say, yeah, I'm reading it on my Kindle, people say, oh yeah, I'm reading it on my Kobo. So they have, the Kobo official site has a section called Kobo Writing Life that is just for writers. They have lots of information. I contacted them and said, hey, I know you've done official NaNoWriMo stuff in the past. Are you doing anything this year? And they said, as a matter of fact, we're an official sponsor this year. We're going to have great prizes that tell your class that they're all invited to this live broadcast chat with the new as of 2012, Executive Director Grant Faulkner from NaNoWriMo.org, and that will be live on Facebook and on YouTube, on their YouTube channel. So you can get to that information through KoboWritingLife.com. They also have a great newsletter that I'm signed up for, and I got a letter this week that told me what they're doing for Nano. All right, so there's tons and tons and tons of resources, like so many, it's overwhelming. So pick and choose what you think might be most suited to you and your own habits, and set limits as necessary so you don't get too far down the rabbit hole to where you can't get out. All right, do we have any questions about everything we have covered thus far? I'm looking in the chat to see if you have any questions. I must be doing a really good job because there aren't any questions yet. Or you're keeping them to yourselves and you're going to ask me at the end, which is completely fine. We'll definitely have a Q&A at the end, and I promise to stay and answer any questions that you may have about NaNoWriMo. For now, we've been going for about an hour, so we're going to take a break. And just for fun, this is the cover of my book, Break. That is not actually published yet. It's the last in my time travel trilogy. It really is called Break, and that is the book I'm writing right now. So I thought I'd share with you the awesome cover that my cover artist made. So we're going to stop talking about the official Nano program and resources for the most part, although you can always save your questions about that for the end of our gathering today. Alrighty, so whether or not you're going to do the official Nano, the information I'm going to share with you, which is geared toward helping you prepare for NaNoWriMo, this should all be useful information for you as a writer in general, particularly if you're on deadline. So here's a great quote from Alexander Graham Bell: before anything else, preparation is the key to success. Well, as I mentioned, we are going to talk about prep. In my semi-professional opinion, speaking as a professional writer and a multi-year nano pirate, there are 3 types of prep that I think are essential that you do before Nano starts. Life prep, story prep, and stuck prep, or really stuckedness prep, or preparation for getting unstuck. I don't know how you want to call that, but on that I really am kind of an expert, because I did write the book 52 Ways to Get Unstuck, with 52, well, there's actually more than 52. I give you some bonus exercises for getting unstuck, but I'm going to share some with you today. You don't have to get the book. So for prep, we're mostly talking about NaNoWriMo, but we can also extrapolate to other goals and deadlines. And Jessica's asking if we could get a link to the book. And you can get that on my website. You can get links to buy the book on my website at chrismandeville.com. Also, Pikes Peak Library District has that book available, I believe, in both hard copy and in ebook, and Melissa can post those links there. Thanks so much for asking. So let's talk first about life prep. I think prepping your life for Nano is essential because NaNoWriMo is going to have a huge effect on your life for the month of November if you choose to participate. So preparing yourself and preparing the others in your life for NaNoWriMo is key for you to be able to participate in Nano and be successful, complete it, win it. I break life prep down into these 4 categories: internal, environment, time. I mentioned that earlier. One of the most challenging areas of NaNoWriMo is organizing your time. We're going to spend a lot of time on that. And then the others in your lives. So we'll start with internal. We actually already did a little bit of this internal prep when we thought about why we want to do NaNoWriMo. So think about that some more. Think about, why do you want to write? Why do you want to participate in this crazy venture? What are your goals? What do you hope to achieve? What are your fears? What are the potential benefits of doing such a thing? And then, as I mentioned earlier, make a dream board or some sort of physical representation of your goal, of your reason for wanting that goal, your motivation. Why do you want to do this? And keep it handy. That may be the single thing that keeps you from quitting when you're right on the verge of, oh, this nano stuff sucks. So that's all I'm going to give you for internal. Not a lot of homework there. Environment. This refers to where you're going to write, your physical space. And this is a bigger deal than you might expect. Your physical environment affects a lot of things. In addition to your physical body, it can also affect your mood, your attitude, your creativity, your inspiration. And this is true whether you're in that space for 1 hour a day or 8 hours or 10 hours a day. But the effects can become amplified the longer you're in the space, particularly to your physical body. So let's imagine, for example, that I am sitting in a doctor's office waiting room, because we still do that live and in person sometimes during a pandemic. And let's say I've got about 15 minutes to my appointment and it's NaNoWriMo, I'm on a deadline, so I'm not going to waste that 15 minutes. But the chair I'm in is really uncomfortable and there's no desk for my laptop or my notebook. There's terrible music piped in over the speakers. It's cold. There's kids roughhousing over there, and all the walls are covered with these annoying posters and bright colors. This environment is just fraught with problems for me personally. Lots of visual noise, actual noise. I'm physically uncomfortable. But it's only for 15 minutes. I mean, I can do anything for 15 minutes. Well, maybe not hold my breath, but other than that, I am not going to waste that 15 minutes that I have to get maybe 100 words down, even if I'm in a not conducive environment. But imagine if that were my environment to write 50,000 words. That doesn't sound so good. I don't want to do that. So I strongly suggest that to prep for November for NaNoWriMo, that you take a look at your physical writing space. And I had to do this for myself because I was not writing in an ergonomically correct position. And I started having some physical ailments that were getting worse the more I wrote. And so I had to take care of that. I had to change my space and make sure that I was ready for NaNoWriMo by getting a better desk chair with better lumbar support, making sure that my chair was at the right height, that my keyboard was at the right height, that my monitor is propped up on some books and is the right height. So look at your space, whatever space you think will be your primary writing space, and look at those ergonomics. Look at comfort, but also look at privacy, noise. what interruptions you might get. And also look at creativity. How can you spark your creativity? By posting things that inspire you. And what about motivation? Maybe post that, the sign that you made with the reason why you're doing Nano. Whatever it is that is positive, that makes you feel good about yourself as a writer, that urges you to go forward, put that in your space. Now, I realize that not everyone is fortunate enough to have a dedicated writing space. I get that. I once had a friend, well, she's still a friend, but at one point in her writing career, she didn't have a private space for writing. She had 3 kids and a small place, and she actually turned a closet into a desk for herself so that she had some privacy and some quiet. So be creative about it. Think about where you might be able to carve out a niche as your primary writing space. And if you can't do that, that's not the end of the world, because you can use your computer desktop as your virtual room, and you can put your inspirations there and your motivations there. You can hide your distractions there. You can put on headphones with music that is inspiring or soothing, block out other noise. There are options that you have there. Be sure, whether you're virtual or your space is a virtual environment or you're in the real world, either way, try to make your body comfortable. Use pillows to prop yourself up. Right now I have a yoga block under my feet so that my legs are at the correct angle. Bring your favorite sweater. Like I mentioned, headphones. Do what you got to do. And think about avoiding distractions. Like, put your phone out of sight. Close email. Tell your family, to not interrupt you unless the house is on fire. Lock out the cat who always wants to be pet when you're typing. Whatever you need to do. Walk your dog before you want to sit down so that he sleeps during the whole thing. It's a good tip from my personal life. Maybe get your kids settled with an unsupervised activity. Turn off the ringer on your phone. Oh, here's a good tip. So most phones nowadays have this do not disturb feature. A lot of times they recommend you use it while driving, so that when you're driving, your phone doesn't ring, your texts don't make sounds. The person who's trying to reach you gets a message that says, I can't talk right now, I'm driving, talk to you later, whatever it is that you put in as your message. You can do that while you're writing. You can have your message say, sorry, I'm writing right now, or NaNoWriMo, go away, or whatever it is you want to say. Do not disturb can be great on your phone. And also, if you do have a door on your writing space, I suggest putting a do not disturb sign on that door. In addition to your primary writing space, which is where you're going to put the most energy into making it right for you, I suggest you get at least one secondary space in mind, maybe more. Because during a whole month of writing, you may find that it helps you to write in a different space on occasion. Now, in normal non-pandemic years, I usually have my spot at the library and I have my favorite coffee shops and that sort of thing. That might still work for you. It doesn't for me because I'm hunkered down, staying away from all the germs. And I wear a mask when I go out. So it might theoretically be possible to go sit at a library or coffee shop. Regardless, think of spaces. And for me, that might be another spot in my house or my car or out in nature. A really great tip that I like to share for Nano folks is you might have a friend or family member nearby who has a day job that they go to physically in the real world and their house is empty. Or maybe they go on a Thanksgiving week-long trip and their house is empty. House sitting or just getting a key and popping in for a few hours to somebody else's space during the day can be a great break from your usual space and your usual mindset. It can produce lots of creative energy, and it also might give you some of the privacy from other folks in your life, in your own space. And it also importantly eliminates the shoulds. If you're in your own house, you have a lot of shoulds. Laundry, dishes, mail, all kinds of things, the dog, the cat, the kids. When you're in somebody else's space, the shoulds are theirs and you don't have to pay attention to them. So the main thing is homework, look at your physical writing space before NaNo starts and do what you need to do to prep for success. Time, this is the biggie, and we will spend some time on this because there's never enough time during NaNoWriMo. But there are things that we could do to set ourselves up to have more time for writing. So I'm going to share with you my multi-step calendar clearing plan. So if you are not writing down anything today during this workshop, great, but you still might want to write down this list of what to do to clear your calendar. The goal is to make big blocks of time each day, or small if you have to, if you can only get small blocks, but to make blocks of time on each calendar day that you plan to write so that you don't have other obligations. So step number 1, eliminate from the November calendar everything that you possibly can. Everything you possibly can. Do you really need to get your nails done? Does the dog really need a bath? Can you skip the homeowners association meeting? Yes, you can. Delete whatever you can delete from November, including if you have a day job, consider taking some personal days or some vacation time to give yourself some more writing time. Delete, 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 delete. Next, postpone. There's something on your calendar, you can't, stop going to the dentist, but you can postpone that to December or January. If you, are scheduled for birthday celebration with one of your friends or family members, ask them if you can celebrate the next month. They might appreciate having their birthday celebration expanded into the next month. So postpone everything that you can. Trade. Next point is trade. Who can you trade with for certain chores or responsibilities? Maybe you normally drive your kid to school every day. Think about joining a carpool. Already in a carpool? Well, see if your carpool drivers will let you have the month of November off if you take, say, the whole month of December yourself. Trade whatever you can. Dog walking, taking out the trash, lawn mowing. Ask your neighbors, ask the people you live with, ask your friends. What can I trade you in order to get more time in November? Next, reduce. Look at the things on your calendar and things in your daily life that you don't want to give up entirely, but that you could probably spend less time on. You could shower less. You could exercise fewer times a week. You could watch only your 2 favorite shows on television or only 1 movie a week. You could put a timer on yourself when you make your social media forays. So limit whatever you can in order to provide you with more time for writing. Do it now. If there's something that you have to do in November that you can get out of the way by doing the work now, like let's say you have a regular newsletter that comes out once or twice a month, write the November newsletters in October and then schedule them for automatic release in November so that you don't have to do it. You don't have to stop writing to do a newsletter. You could even put in the comments of your newsletter post, I'll check back for comments next month when I'm done with NaNoWriMo. Same for social media posts. If you have a social media presence, you can schedule posts in advance. I strongly recommend you do all the shopping and errands and everything that you can in advance so that you're well stocked when November hits. You have food, maybe even some meals that you've made ahead of time that are in the freezer. You have your handy dandy takeout menus available. You have your prescriptions stocked up, your dog food stocked up, your house is clean, your dishes are done, your laundry's all done. And that way you can spend less time worrying about the regular daily maintenance stuff. Just do as much of it in advance as you can. And if you celebrate US Thanksgiving, try to figure out what your plans are now. And yes, they may be different because of the pandemic. Maybe you usually go to your sister's house, but now you can't. Think about what you're going to do to celebrate and prep as much stuff in advance as you can. And you know, if Thanksgiving's not that big of a deal in your family, if you don't have it on Thanksgiving, if it doesn't matter to you to have it on Thanksgiving, do what the Canadians do. Pick a more convenient day. I lived in Canada and people were asking me, so what day are you celebrating Thanksgiving? And I'm like, hello, on Thanksgiving. They're like, really? Well, we do ours on Friday, or we do ours on Sunday. Or apparently it's, you know, Canadian Thanksgiving, which is in October, is not as strict about when you celebrate. So take a note from the Canucks up there. Finally, streamline and consolidate everything that's left on your calendar. Group it into tight little groups. If you have to run errands, run them all on the same day. If you have to read your physical mail and pay your bills, well, set aside an hour twice that month to do it, and then ignore the mail till then. As long as, you know, there are not going to be bad consequences from you doing that. If you normally, you know, call your mom every day, talk to her in advance and say, look, we're going to need to do like a weekly call instead of a daily call because of NaNoWriMo. Maybe consider in the month of November eating brunch every day instead of breakfast and lunch. See, you can find time just about anywhere. And don't forget those little bitty chunks of time that you can't push all your errands together. You're going to have a 15-minute downtime at the doctor's office. That's okay. Take a notebook or your laptop and you can write then too. Excuse me. So once you've done your calendar prep, from that point forward, any little thing that threatens to come into your world and get on your calendar for the month of November, go through those steps and do your absolute best not to add anything to your calendar now that it's cleaned up, because you want those big blocks of time for writing, as big as you can get, if that works for you. I mean, maybe you're the kind of writer that I like to do an hour now and then an hour after lunch and then an hour in the evening. Whatever works for you, block the time. And then at the end of each week, whatever you consider the end of your work week, block an emergency block of time. So that, okay, I'm expecting Monday through Friday, I'm going to get my words in for the week. But on the weekend, like Saturday afternoon, I'm going to set like a 3-hour block of time. For if I'm behind, I have that time blocked on the weekend to catch up on my word count. If I'm not behind, I can do something fun in that time, or I can get ahead for the next week. Speaking of getting behind, if you are in the middle of Nano and you do find yourself behind, take another look at your calendar and see where you can eke out more, just a little more time to try to get caught up. Consider going to bed later or getting up earlier. It's not forever, it's a short period of time. My favorite, shower fewer times. I like to just put my hair in a ponytail and go to work where no one can see me. Maybe you could get takeout more often. Maybe you could call in some favors, people who owe you something. Hey, bring me dinner, or come do my laundry, come walk my dog. And like I said, don't forget the little chunks of time. Those can help you get caught up too. Others. Notice there's an S on that. This is not other types of life prep. This is life prep that has to do with the others in your life. In my experience, one of the biggest challenges that a writer faces is balancing time to ourselves, where we're focused on our writing, and balancing time we spend with the others in our lives. This could be people at your work. You don't have any choice. You have to go spend time with them. This could be your people you live with. People like my mom, who is long distance, that, you know, I need to talk to regularly on the phone, or she thinks I've disappeared off the face of the earth, or that I have a tumor. So we also have this innate desire, many of us, to want to be with other people and to want to please those other people in our lives. So those things can encroach on our mental space for writing. We feel like even though we've blocked the time and we put our phone on do not disturb, maybe my significant other is feeling left out or neglected. Maybe my mom is worried that I was in a car accident. Maybe. There's all these things that could be going through your mental space and inhibiting your ability to write. So I recommend that you talk to the others in your lives in advance of NaNoWriMo. Think about the expectations that you have naturally built between the two of you, like my mom's expectation that I'm going to call her every day or whatever that is. It's normal to have expectations. But if you stop meeting expectations without an explanation, there could be some pretty bad consequences, like your mom sends the police to your house. Not that that's ever happened. Like you forget to, like you don't pick the kids up at school. They're standing there waiting for you to come, or you get in trouble at work because you missed a meeting, or whatever it is. So to avoid these consequences, talk to the people in your life about what you want to do. Tell them why it's important to you. And then tell them how it might affect them and how expectations between the two of you for the month of November you would like for them to change. Discuss it with them. Do your best to get them to buy in to your goal, to your plan. Because if they're on your team, they're going to be a lot more understanding. If you get them rooting for you to finish those words, then maybe instead of a, do you want to come watch a movie with me? You get a, here's a snack and a cup of coffee. Keep going, honey. That's what we want. We want these folks on our team. So discuss expectations. And once you've reached an agreement, repeat it back to them and say, this is what I understand we're going to do for the month of November. And you're not going to get mad or feel neglected or think I fell off the face of the earth if we don't have the same patterns we did the previous month. If you have kids, teenagers or young kids, consider making this a contract, a written contract with them as to what you're all agreeing to do. Bribe them, reward them, whatever you have to do to get them to agree, but make sure you actually deliver on those promises. Feel free to take your schedule with you when you talk to these people and show them, okay, look, these are the blocks of time I need to myself in order to meet my goal. Will you be on my team with this? So bottom line is, you'll have a better chance of success if you get your others in your life to buy in and to support you. And then make sure you deliver on your promises. Okay, I know that was a lot of information. I would love it if you let me know if you have any questions now. Time, finding time, making time, using time wisely, all of that is top of mind for NaNoWriMo. So hopefully I've given you some suggestions that will help you to carve out the time that you need. If you have questions about this, about my system or my advice or about my personal experience, you can put them in the chat or you can ask me at the end of the program. For now, I'm going to, I do have one question from the Peanut Gallery. Jared is asking, what strategies do you use to build your calendar for NaNoWriMo? I would say my main strategy is to look at previous months where I've been successful. And in fact, a little secret, right now, in the month of October, I am gearing up for NaNoWriMo by trying to put practices in place on my calendar, in my putting my butt in the chair for enough time to actually make that word count of 1667 a day. Ramping up for me to 2,500 a day, 2,500 words a day during the actual month of November. So my strategy is, think about when you are most creative in the day. Maybe you're a morning person, maybe you're a night owl, and block that time on your calendar and move everything else out of the way, rather than going about it by fixing your calendar first and creating these open spots. Block your creative time, and then let that be sacrosanct. Don't let anybody take over that time. And you treat it as an appointment, as a commitment to your goal, an appointment with yourself to meet your goal. That's my best strategy. All right, so let's move on to story prep, but keep the questions coming if you have them. Now we're going to talk about prepping your story. And what I mean by this is figuring out what you're going to write. What kind of story is it? What's the plot? Who are the characters? Where and when does it take place? Does it have a happy ending? If you're playing by the official NaNo rules, you are allowed to do as much prep as you want in the month of October. You can keep prepping in November if you want, but it takes writing time away. If you're not playing by anybody's rules, do whatever the heck you want. But here you go with some suggestions for, we have just under a month to prep for NaNoWriMo. What should you do? There's so much you could do, so much. It can be overwhelming. It can be daunting. It can even make you not want to do NaNoWriMo because you get so overwhelmed by the information. Or perhaps by planning out your story in advance, you become uninspired. You don't want to write that story anymore because you figured it all out. We don't want those things to happen. So I'm going to go over some exercises and strategies to help you prep in a way that supports you, how you are as a writer, and gets you ready for Nano in your own way. So the first category we're going to go over is roadmap. And you might not have heard that before because I sort of made that up. But then we're going to talk about plot, characters, setting, and research, all the things that you are hopefully going to look at before November 1st. And that goes to Stacy's question about researching my story in advance. It absolutely comes into play in October for me. I love to research. So let's go ahead and talk about the roadmap. So you may have heard of the terms plotter and pantser. If you haven't, don't worry, I'm going to tell you what they are. A plotter refers to somebody who maps out their entire story in advance. Plotters can't imagine what it's like to jump into writing a book without having a plan. It's scary, it's intimidating, it's uncomfortable, it's unthinkable. If you are a plotter, then all the planning stuff that I'm going to talk about sounds fantastic to you. Sounds great. Yes, 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 you want to do it. If you're a pantser is someone who writes by the seat of their pants, thus the name. I've also heard it called writing into the ether or writing into the dark. A pantser sits down to write with no idea what they're going to write. There's no plan. There's no plot. You just sit down and see what bubbles up and comes out. They often feel, I should mention, pantsers often feel that plotting just takes the joy right out of a project. They often will call plotters plodders. If you're a pantser, you may want to skip all of the planning that I recommend. Well, that's okay, except for this, the roadmap. I've interviewed hundreds of pantsers, and I am sorry to say I'm not really exaggerating about that number. I have talked to many, many, many pantsers over the last 15 years, and I found out they will all tell you at first blush, oh no, I don't have a plan. Oh no, I don't plot in advance. But if you dig a little, you find out that the successful pantsers, the ones who are actually writing, they all have something in common. They have a roadmap in their brain. It's not written down, it's in their brain. And it sometimes is comprised of just a beginning point and a destination somewhere along the journey. May not be the end, but I call that point the destination. They're writing to a point in the story. And I'm going to give you a quick and easy method for making your own roadmap. We're going to look at your genre expectations. So I'll use mystery as an example. If you're a mystery reader, you have certain expectations as to what's going to be in a mystery book. You think, okay, there's got to be some sort of crime. There's a mystery in a mystery book. Now, this mystery or crime could be mild or it could be horrific. It really depends on the subgenre, but we're not going to look at that. We're just going to look at the basic genre expectations. And that is there's some sort of an incident, a crime. There's a bad guy who's responsible for that. And there's a good guy who tries to solve the mystery. There's going to be clues along the way. Some of them are not going to pan out. They're going to be false starts or red herrings. And eventually, at the end, the mystery is solved and the bad guy is foiled or caught. And the mystery solver, the good guy, has some sort of victory or closure. Okay, basic roadmap for a mystery. You can do this for any genre, even nonfiction. What does the reader expect in the most basic terms? Now, this roadmap is what I recommend as your minimum prep for story planning in NaNoWriMo. And that's because if you get off track during the course of Nano and you're not sure what to write next, your roadmap can at least point you in the right direction. Now, you can put a whole lot more detail into the roadmap if you're a planner. If you're a pantser and you don't want to do any more, that's okay. Totally okay. I'm going to go through these other points on my story prep very quickly. I'm not going to go into them in detail, but I will be going into them in detail next week at the class through the Pikes Peak Library District on NaNoPlano. So if you want more, you can find more on the internet by Googling the item, how do you plot a story? Or you can come to my class. So plot is the sequence of events that happens in the story. It's what happens. Story planning with regard to plot includes as many points along that plot as you want to write down. There could be 2. There could be 52, 152. It's up to you. If you like to plot and plan, the world is full of tools for you. I'm going to mention a couple. 3-act structure, the hero's journey, save the cat, plot diagrams, storyboarding, index cards. That is not all of them. There are so many. Or you can just plot it out what comes naturally to you. You don't have to use a technique. My personal favorite is using the hero's journey, and I do not use Joseph Campbell's ridiculously long tome, very academic on it. As great as it is, it doesn't speak to me the way that a book called The Writer's Journey by Christopher Vogler does. I think that is a fantastic resource, and I believe it is available at the Pikes Peak Library. So, plot as little or as much as you want. There are resources available to help you do it in advance. Characters. These are the people or the human-like beings, sentient beings who populate our stories. It's who the story is about. And they provide a way for our readers to experience the story. We see it through the character's eyes. There are many types of techniques and strategies for creating characters, probably more so than for plotting. You can interview your character, that's a popular one. Create a collage from pictures out of a magazine. Start with an archetype or a stereotype. Base characters on people you know or on yourself. However you get started, I recommend giving them hopes and dreams, giving them goals, giving them history, what we call backstory, giving them issues and fears and problems. That's very important. So lots of ways to do it. My personal favorite tool is called GMC for goal, motivation, and conflict. That is the name of a book by author Deborah Dixon, D-I-X-O-N, Goal, Motivation, Conflict. Goal is what your character wants. Motivation is why they want it. And conflict is what is getting in their way. So simple and so genius. I highly recommend the book. But time is short. If you would like a shortcut, you may go to my blog post. I have a blog post on GMC. And just so you know that you're going to get the right information, I will brag a little that Deborah Dixon commented on my blog post when it was first published and said that I nailed it. So yay me and yay you, because now you can read an abbreviated version. So go to chrismandeville.com, go to tips and info for writers, click on the blog, and that will take you over to Kobo Writing Life, my old blog posts. Scroll all the way to the bottom and you'll find the GMC post. A little hint, little tip, don't just plan your protagonist. Plan your antagonist too, and plan your secondary characters, as much or as little as you want. Next, told you we're going to go fast. Setting. Setting is where your story takes place. Nebraska, Mars, the Shire. If you write speculative fiction like I do, science fiction, fantasy, steampunk, paranormal, horror, then we call that world building. But I say that every genre, except potentially not nonfiction, it depends, but every fiction genre world builds to some degree, even if it takes place in modern day. Like, what if I was writing a story that took place right now, here, me on video talking to you, giving a workshop. As the writer of that scene, I'd have to think about what details were important to include and what I could leave out. So everybody world builds. So plan your story, where it is, when it is. Maybe that's a quick and easy thing for you, or maybe it is hours and hours of work with notebooks full of information and charts and diagrams and timelines. However works for you. But as a basic minimum for your roadmap, at least pick where your story begins. It can change, it often changes throughout, but pick where your story begins as a minimum. Research. Writers usually fall into one camp or the other. We love it, or we only do what is necessary. If you don't love research, prep for Nano should be pretty easy. You're only going to do what's absolutely necessary. Maybe that's nothing. That's okay. If you love research, then you may have a hard time limiting yourself and getting all your research in a reasonable amount of time. The goal for both types of writers is to do what you have to do in terms of research before Nano begins, so that you don't take time during your writing time Googling when were zippers invented, which is something I might Google for my time travel stories. Instead, I recommend that you put 3 asterisks in your manuscript wherever you need to come back later and insert information that you will research when you're not in the midst of writing, so that you don't lose your train of thought or your momentum, or you don't fall short on your word sprints or on your goals for the day. I personally love research so much that it's really easy for me to fall down the rabbit hole and spend way too much time there before and during Nano. So I have to set limits on myself to make sure that I don't do that. So use at your own risk, set your own limits, you know yourself. One little tip I want to mention is back to the research forum on the official NaNoWriMo. You can go there to see if your question's already been answered, or you can post a question for crowdsourcing results there. Okay, I'm personally not a plotter or a pantser. I'm what I call a hybrid. I like to plan things out and I do a lot of research, but I don't have a linear trajectory on my manuscript. It's not plotted out to the nth detail. So I always call that a hybrid, but turns out the official Nano calls that a plantser. So be a plantser, make a roadmap, and do as much planning or plotting or pantsing as you need to, as works for you. Figure out what is the best fit for you. All right, so if you have questions, go ahead and type that in the chat, but I'm going to keep going because we're coming up on the end of our 2-hour period, and I want to make sure you get all the information that I have to share today. So with all this prep and inspiration and motivation, we're all excited now to jump in and do Nano, right? It can be hard to imagine in this current state of excitement that you will ever come to a point where you can't get words down on the page. But I promise you, if you do NaNoWriMo, or if you become a regular writer of any kind, someday you will get stuck. You will have a moment, a day, a week, even a month, if you let it go so long, where you're not able to get words on the page. I believe that every writer should have a toolbox of things that help them get unstuck when they're in that dark place, and that toolbox should be put together before you start writing. Because when you're feeling really terrible about the words not coming, you have writer's block or whatever you want to call it, it can be exhausting to think about researching. How do I get out of this slump? What should I do? What should I try? Nothing feels good. So I'm going to give you some tools for your toolbox and then encourage you to go find more tools. And at the risk of sounding self-serving by plugging my book, one of the reasons I have 52 ways in my book, 52 ways to get unstuck, is that you can use a deck of cards, any deck of cards, to randomly pull a card, and that corresponds to an exercise in the book, so that you don't have to spend any energy figuring out what to do. You can just pull a card and see if that exercise gets you unstuck. So Let's talk about a couple things you can put in your toolbox right now. I've divided getting stuck into these categories somewhat randomly. I think they're all kind of writer's block. You can get stuck in motivation. You can hit what I call the doldrums. You can be stared down by a personal demon that keeps you from writing, and then you can get stuck on actual story components. I'm going to give you tools for all of these. If you can't write them down fast enough, don't worry, you can watch the recording, or you can always check with me later. Motivation. Okay, we've already done the homework for this. If you really thought about why you're doing NaNoWriMo, if you wrote that down like I asked you to, hey, that may be all you need is to revisit that when you're stuck to help get you remotivated. If that doesn't work, I have two tools. Number one is a reward system. Reward yourself. If I write 100 words, I get a piece of candy. Or if I make my word count goal for today, I get to buy that shirt or pajamas or whatever it is online that I want to buy. Or I could watch a movie as soon as I reach my word count, play a game. At the end of Nano, you could plan a big reward. Maybe that motivates you. So if I do my 50,000 words by November 30th, I get the biggest prize I can afford. I get a pony or an ice cream cake or whatever it is that motivates you. And maybe doesn't have to be something that costs money. Maybe you could go for a day-long hike with your best friend. Speaking of friends, tool number 2, buddy up. Try making a date with another writer if you're not feeling motivated. Virtual is fine. You can go online and find people to buddy up with on nanowrimo.org and in the buddies. You can go to a forum. You can join a Twitter word sprint. Having an appointment where you have to sit down and write and you're expecting yourself and others are expecting you to produce words, that can be all it takes to get you motivated. The point of these types of exercises, these tools, is to get you back on the horse. Because if you're back on the horse, however you got there, then you have the opportunity to make progress. All right, so the doldrums are a real thing. Just like sailors on the open ocean, they hit a patch where there's absolutely no wind. Writers can come to a point in a project where the words just won't come. It's not possible to make any progress. The writer can have their butt in the chair and the chair is comfortable and they're motivated and they're hydrated and they've done all the things and still the words will not come. It's just part and parcel of being a writer, trying to put words down. This happens. So 2 tools that may help. First is do something mundane. And by that I mean something that takes very little conscious thought, like getting on an exercise bike or a treadmill, like vacuuming, like driving somewhere that you don't really have to pay a lot of attention. I mean, still watch the road, but if you always drive to King Soopers once or twice a week and you know how to get there by heart, doing something like that can help in the back of your mind, your story to start bubbling forward again and help that break free. My very favorite tip for this, I keep talking about showers. God, I sound like somebody who doesn't ever shower. I actually shower a lot during NaNoWriMo because when I shower, that's when the ideas tend to bubble up for me. And I keep a notepad outside the shower. I should probably invest in one of those like waterproof notepads because I always get great ideas in the shower. Somehow the act of that and hearing the water running, and it all just sort of helps my subconscious come forward with ideas. So tool number 2, consume something inspiring. So watch something, read something, listen to something that inspires you, like a show with great dialogue, like The West Wing or the Firefly series. Read a passage in a book that you find really inspiring, or listen to music that really gets you going. But be cognizant that this is an exercise, right? The minute you get sucked in to whatever this movie is or this book, the minute the cure becomes part of the problem, you're no longer working on your story. So keep that in mind. Personal demons. I am not talking about bad habits like drinking too much coffee, as if there could be such a thing. I'm talking about the voices in our heads that discourage us. Sometimes those demons take the shape of perfectionism or procrastination. They can be imposter syndrome is a good one, insecurity, self-doubt, discouragement, depression. We all have these demons. All writers do. All humans do. But when it comes to writing, there can be these persistent voices in our head that discourage us, that move us off task, that keep us from putting words down. Getting rid of those demons can be really hard. I'm not going to lie, especially when you're on a time crunch. We have less than 30 days before it's time to start writing. So I recommend that you find a way to mute them or to shove them under the rug for the month of November. Now, your prep work is to identify what demons might bother you and to remember how you have battled them and won in the past. And then do a little bit of research and get some new ideas. I wish I could just give you the tools right here, but these personal demons are personal. And I don't know what your demons are. I don't know what will work for you to banish them, but I can tell you for me. One of my personal demons is perfectionism, and it rears its ugly head a lot, or at least it used to. The way that I have figured out how to shut that demon up is by giving myself permission to write something bad, not just imperfect, but bad, really bad. So if I'm actively writing something bad, the perfectionist demon is nowhere in sight. He has no say in this. Another trick is to write so fast, your hair blows back and the demons can't catch you. You can't hear a word they're saying. So figure out your own demons, figure out how best to mute them or get rid of them, at least for a short time. Hey, if you can get rid of them forever, let me know. I found it to be next to impossible, but you may have better luck. Either way, think about those demons and get yourself some tools so that when you are confronted by a demon during Nano, all you have to do is reach in your toolbox and you have what you need right there to banish them. Story block. This is when you get stuck on your story and you can't figure out what happens next, what a character would do or say, what the next plot turn is going to be. You just don't know. There's tons of tools, but I'm going to give you 3 for now. Number 1, jump forward. By that I mean, go to a point in the story where you think you know what's supposed to happen. A point forward where you haven't written anything on that yet. And even though you haven't written the connective tissue there, just write that scene anyway. And a lot of times by starting there, it makes it easier to come back to where you're stuck and the problem gets fixed. Number 2, write something. Anything, write anything. It doesn't matter. Write something that you know is wrong. Like, for example, your Snow White would never take a bite of the poison apple. You know that, but you don't know what she would do. So write the scene where she takes a bite of the poison apple. By writing the thing that you know is wrong, that may help illuminate what to do that will be right for your story. Finally, talk it out. Talk to a friend. It doesn't have to be another writer. Talk about their ideas, about what they think you could fix your problem. They're probably going to be wrong. But again, looking at what's wrong may help you put a finger on what is right. And I know this may sound a little woo-woo, but a lot of people talk to their characters and actually ask their characters, why won't you do the thing I want you to do? Or what would you do in this situation? And sometimes they get the answers that way. So 3 quick tools to put in your toolbox for story block. So I know that's a lot of information. Trust me when I say it is just the tip of the iceberg. I hope that you will take these ideas and start your toolbox with them and then replenish them or fill that toolbox before NaNoWriMo with as many tools as you think you might need. One of the tools I use that I mentioned sort of offhandedly is word sprints, and someone in the chat has asked how I do word sprints. I don't know if there's one universal way to do them, so I will tell you how I do them, and I will tell you that I do them every day. not just during NaNo, because that gives me an appointment where I'm supposed to be mentally ready to write. I'm supposed to be physically in a space where I can write, and I'm supposed to produce words. And my friends who do the sprints with me are going to hold me accountable. I'm going to have to do some explaining, make some excuses if I don't show up. Or if I do the sprint and I don't produce any words, I'm going to have to explain that. I don't like that. It's uncomfortable. So I write instead. So the way it works is you can do it by yourself or with someone else or with multiple other people. You can do it on Twitter. You decide how long you're going to write. 15 minutes, 30 minutes. I typically don't like an hour personally because that's kind of a lot of squidgy time. I could get up and make a cup of coffee and get distracted and come back and still no one would know. I like to be more accountable than that. So I like to do 20, 30-minute sprints. You set a timer and then you write as fast as you can for that amount of time, 20 minutes or whatever. You write on your own project. You do not ever read it out loud to anybody else. It's just for you. If you don't know what to write on your own project, you can just take a writing prompt. You can Google writing prompts and get one and just write for 15 minutes on anything in the world. You can describe the view out your window, or recount the time that you got an F on your book report in 4th grade, or whatever it is. You just write. And you write as fast as you can. And I mentioned earlier that, that's a great way to keep the demons at bay. More specifically, it's a really good way to learn to turn off the inner critic that says, that's not the best word you could have chosen there. Or, are you sure that she knows that information? Maybe your character didn't learn that in chapter 2. Maybe you should go back and look at chapter 2 and make sure she really knows that Johnny is the killer before you start talking about it here. There's a lot of little voices in your head, the critic, the doubter, that will try to get you to stop writing. And the point of a word sprint is to push through all that, to block out that extraneous noise, the voices in your head, and just write as fast as you can. I find it a very useful tool. Obviously, I do it every day. All right, do we have any more questions about tools, about my own practice, about NaNoWriMo rules, resources? Research time for a story come into play at all? For example, can you do research if needed in October? Yes, NaNoWriMo official rules say that you can do as much research, prep, and planning as you want. The rule is, for the official program, you cannot take those words and insert them into your novel as part of your word count. Again, no one's policing you. No one will know but you. I love research, and I do a lot of research before I start a new project. I recommend you do what you need to do in October in order to be able to sit down and write on November 1st, and try to anticipate what you might need to know for the whole 50,000 words. So in other words, don't just research what you need for chapter 1. Do whatever research in advance that you can for the scope of the book. You're going to come across things during November that you didn't think of to research. That's okay. Put the asterisks, I have such a hard time saying that, in the plural. Put a couple of asterisks in your manuscript so that you can easily do a search and find where you have to come back. Or if you really, really, really cannot find a way forward without doing the research, set aside a time to do the necessary research. Set a timer if you need to, whatever safeguards you must set to not spend too much time researching down that rabbit hole. Find what you need to know, and then come back to your manuscript. Remember the research desk on NaNoWriMo.org where you can ask questions. So let's say, I don't have time to Google, when were zippers invented in the US, or when were they common in the US? Did people have zippers in their clothes in 1906? I can type that into the research desk, into a forum, and ask, and somebody will answer it. So I can go off and get lunch, or keep writing and then come back and get the answer. All right, so Melissa, did you see any other questions? Stacy says she loves research too, and the safeguard suggestion is good. Yeah, I know I kind of harped on that a little bit, but that's just because I know me, and I know that I tend to get so excited about research, I just keep going. And if you're like that, you know yourself if you're like that or not. Set yourself up for success by identifying that that's one of your issues and that you may need for somebody to come shake you or a timer to go off or whatever it is. All right, well, I will keep watching for questions, but I am going to talk about what is next. What is next for all of us going forward into NaNoWriMo? Are you going to do it or not? Are you going to be a pirate? Are you going to DIY it? Where are you going to do this writing on this project? How do you make time to write? You got to make time to write. I mean, that calendar exercise is probably the most important thing, right alongside setting expectations with your others in your life and making your roadmap. As far as prep goes, I recommend be on the roadmap, be a plantser, do as much or as little research as you think you need to do, as planning and plotting and character development, to set yourself up for success during the month of November. Fill your toolbox with things to help you if you get stuck along the way. You can always download the official NaNoWriMo prep class from their website. There's a link at the bottom of their official website, whether you're signed in or not. You can see what is available to you in the class outline, and then you can download it if you think it would be useful. And you can take my class if you'd like next week. Same that channel, also free, 2 hours, really digging into NaNoPlano. So if you have friends who are not new to Nano, but want to be set up for success in this year's Nano, have them join us. And we'll talk much more in depth about plans. And I'll give you some specific exercises that you can try if you'd like before November 1st. All righty, any final questions? I'm glad it's been a good refresher to those of you who've done Nano. Thanks for that feedback. If you're new to Nano, lots of help and resources out there. Lots of Nano alumni to help you out. If you want to reach out to me, you can find me at chrismandeville.com. And again, my handle on NaNoWriMo is KitKaede, Kitkaede. I'd love to buddy up with you. And if you think of other questions after the presentation's over, feel free to send me an email through my website. I do read those myself. I'm not so famous that I have an assistant that screens them. I will see your email and I'll write back. All right, well, gosh, thanks everyone. I'm really glad that you were here to go through the steps with me on what to do to get ready for Nano. And I hope you all will do some sort of writing project with a specific goal, like 50,000 words. And then you can say you did it. You're a novelist. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you, Chris.